Ash and Jay, welcome. You guys are muted, but you can unmute yourself if you'd like to talk. Okay, we are live. Okay, and the format we're going to take here for these calls is basically running through an agenda. We'll start each week with introductions and then talk about some of the things we plan on doing over the course of the week. Since this is the first call, we won't have any recap of things that were done previously, but we will go ahead and recap the previous week in future calls. For the time being, because we've had some webinar or Zoom hacking in the past, we're gonna use a webinar approach. I'm gonna give everybody the ability to talk and unmute themselves. And if we get to a point where anyone has contributed and wants to show off their work, then they'll be promoted to a panelist. But for now, the panelists will be the core team. Welcome everybody. Looks like Alessio just joined. Oh.
Hey guys.
Accidentally just promoted Stanny to a panelist. So, hey, you get to be a panelist today too. Okay, and Alessio's coming back as a panelist now. Hatham, welcome. Okay, guys, we'll give it maybe one more minute as we still have people joining. All right, why don't we get started with introductions and then we can move into the rest of the agenda. So I'm Dan Matthews, I'm the CTO of PieDAO, and I'll be leading these calls going forward. I head up the engineering efforts here, and we're gonna get these development calls going weekly in order to try to encourage outside community participation. So it's not just the core team hacking on this thing. And so I'm very excited to have you guys all here. I've been working in the industry for a little over 16 years now as a developer, and a couple of years now developing on ETH. And yeah, I'm really thrilled to be part of this project. Alessio, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Alessio Del Monte. I've been, well, mostly working on Ethereum for the last 2 to 3 years in different aspects, from application layer to some other stuff. I mostly do the role of product owner / coordinator, narrator, however you want to call it in PieDAO. And I'm very excited to see like a bunch of new people, being able to join the development cycle and contribute. I think this has been one of the most requested things from the DAO to open up this process. So I'm really looking forward to see people joining in. Mick, you want to take it from there?
Yes. I'm Mick de Graaf. I'm doing most of the smart contract development for PieDAO. Well, everything up till now. Yeah, so we're opening up. And I've been involved with Ethereum since 2015. I started mining a bit, and then before mainnet went live, I started playing with smart contracts. And then in, I think, 2017, it actually became my job to develop smart contracts, which I've done for freelance stuff. And now I'm doing the smart contract development at PieDAO. So excited for the call.
Okay, and Gab, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. I'm actually not a developer. I'm originally an engineer. I've been, taking more of the business side of, blockchain for over the past year. And anyhow, I'm really looking forward to see, how what is eventually going to, how these development code are eventually going to evolve, since that would definitely be a key aspect of the community involvement.
Great. Stanley, since you're our honorary panelist here, since I accidentally promoted you, you want to go next?
Yeah, sure. I'm Stanley from Alba, which is a money market protocol. Been in the space for a few years. Started with kind of like a research project, ETHLend, and then it basically became a first lending protocol in Ethereum, and then we created the Aave protocol. And yeah, here mostly for listening what you guys have in PieDAO, and it seems super interesting. Really love the concept and want to express my support here. Nice to meet you, everyone.
Great, welcome. Haytham, you want to go next?
Oh, hi. Yeah, I was muted, sorry. So I'm Haytham, Solidity developer, been doing like coding Solidity for a few years now. Currently working with Open. Yeah, happy to be here and see where can I help or add value, contribute.
Excellent, excellent. Jay, you want to go next? You're gonna have to unmute yourself. All right, maybe move on to, sorry if I butcher your name, Sachin.
Yeah, hey guys. So I'm just excited to get to know about you guys. And myself, I am currently working with Gitcoin on a program called Kernel Fellowship. I'm designing it. And yesterday itself, we submitted a hack and presented a hack in ETH Global. It's Flashmint, and it's a no-code art builder. So yeah, just excited to be here.
Excellent, excellent. And hi, I see you just joined. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Voilà, alors donc après tout se gaspille. Voilà, voilà.
Hello, are you here?
Ouh, l'école, ça va pas reprendre cette année. Ça va reprendre en septembre.
Oh, okay, I think that's maybe not a real member here. Okay, and I see that Nico just joined as well. Nico, you want to introduce yourself?
Sorry, guys, I was muted. Yeah, I'm Nico. I'm a designer, and I'm also contributing in PieDAO, and previously on Dex Lab, which is the company that did Dex Wallet, among other products.
Okay, great. Well, welcome,
Thank you.
everybody. Thank you for joining our first call today. So I want to kind of kick it off with a little bit of a high-level discussion about how we're going to be dealing with project management and issues, stories, that type of thing. So we have spent the last week and a half, 2 weeks setting up Zen Hub and getting a whole bunch of templates in place. So you can see that here. If you download the Zen Hub extension, you will have a Zen Hub tab in your GitHub, all of our projects repos. And we've got a development board that includes all of the active repositories at the moment. So if you want to get involved in development, this is a really good way to take a look at everything. We are using a non-rigid agile approach here. We're not yet doing story points or anything. We're just kind of taking a general user story approach, moving from new issues to refinement, to icebox, backlog, in progress, review, QA, done, or closed. So anyone who's familiar with general XP or has used Trello in a kind of generally agile way will find this fairly familiar. Basically, if you want to get started on any issue, there's a number of these that are tagged good first issue. They're pretty basic. You'll see if you look in them that they describe fairly well what needs to be done. You'll see they're tied to specific repositories, and there's a definition of done here. If you have any questions about the issue, you can comment on it here. We're also going to be bountying a number of these and developing a bounty program over the course of the next week. So I'm looking for anyone who's currently participating to or interested in participating to provide feedback. So you should check out our Discord channel if you're not already in there. And there's a development channel inside of our Discord server where you can talk about this, and we'll start to get a lot more active about discussing these issues in there as well. But we do treat GitHub here as kind of the canonical source of information for project management. You'll notice that the agenda for today is on GitHub as well, in a GitHub issue. And so in the future, I'll be posting these agendas up on Monday. And so will be plenty of time to go ahead and leave any comments on things you want to talk about. And when you decide you want to start an issue, what I ask is that you just kind of check in on the issue, say that you're going to start it, and then you can go ahead and assign yourself and drag that over to the in progress category here in order to, so everybody knows that you're kind of working on it. It'd be great to have a little bit of background if this is your first issue about who you are, what your background is, stuff like that in the Discord server. And then we will certainly talk about those issues and any work that was done, any PRs that were submitted and approved on these calls. So obviously a good starting point for anyone who wants to get involved in developing is to join one of these calls and get introduced to the team. So that's it on this. We can, anyone have any questions on ZenHub and the way that works before I move on? Okay, cool. I think that should be pretty familiar to most people who've done development before. So next I want to talk about a project that Mick is going to be working on over the course of the next week. You may have seen his article previously about flash loan experimentation. So he's actually going to be experimenting a little bit with trying to bring flash loans to our existing balancer pools. And so we're going to try to put something up on Kovan or one of the test networks in the next week, and probably demo that on the next call. Mick, you want to say anything about that? You're muted.
Yeah, I'm thinking about what ways of flash loans we actually want to do. Do we want to do like flash minting of BTC++, for example? Well, a test BTC++, or do you want to flash loan the underlying assets, or both, or like maybe some input about what would be most interesting, like BTC++ itself, or the underlying assets?
As a general starting point, having the possibility to flash loan the underlying asset is probably the best way to go, as there will be already market demand for those assets, like to be used in a number of different arbitrage opportunity or whatever. I actually do like the idea of like flash minting BTC++. I don't think we are that much liquid at this point for that to happen. but it would be an interesting development. But it looks like a step two to me.
Yeah.
And by the way, guys, everybody has the ability to talk. So if you have any comments, just feel free to unmute yourself and just chat. This is not really a formal process, but more of a general discussion. So open for anyone who wants to contribute.
Yeah, kind of curious to see what Stanley thinks about flash minting of BTC++.
Yeah, I think it's actually pretty interesting. What's important that there is a good amount of liquidity. Like basically, if there is a way somewhere that liquidity is parked, I mean, it definitely makes sense to flash the actual derivative. So kind of like, depending, of course, the use case. But I think in general, like I consider myself like a flash loan maximalist. So the idea for me sounds pretty interesting. Have you considered like what's the use case exactly, like what you want to do with it? Basically, is it for rebalancing or like concretely?
I think we want to start off by, yeah, like I think the basic idea is, okay, how do we get some extra yield for holders of BTC++, for instance, or other kind of pools that we might roll out in the near future. Like flash loans is obviously like a good way to get that extra yield in place, and then as Balancer is very much, I think, oriented like to arbitrage right now. I think there is like a further use case for that to happen. So that would be like my main use of it. I think people can come out with different ways to use it. Like, but I think that's the starting point. I don't know. How do you guys feel about that? I think this is a good venue to kind of brainstorm that.
Yeah, what I've seen like in terms of like flash loans or any kind of functionality is that even there's not always like 100% like all the use cases have been thought. There's always someone who comes up with some kind of like a way to utilize it, and that's the kind of like interesting of point of the composability. Only thing I would kind of try to wrap more head around is in the kind of like attackability and those kind of things, and then but other than that, I mean like there's someone will eventually come and find like a use case. I think in terms of like our own experience in Aave is that we had like maybe a couple of like interesting use cases that we were planning to utilize the flash loans, and eventually like once more people came into the community and started to brainstorm a bit and throw ideas, it expanded more and more. So definitely, I think it's just a start, and it might be that there will be some interesting new ways to utilize, and that's like the cool thing about flash loans.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I think like part of this research initiative is also to kind of figure out if the underlying infrastructure based on Balancer pool is like flexible enough for that to be made. If there is any compatibility issue with the underlying B pool smart contract. So yeah, like I think as you said, like a number of different use cases will eventually pop out, and I've seen a number of very interesting idea buzzing out in the other Discord before. I think it's an exciting technology. For the scope of this kind of research project, I'm really looking forward to understand, can this be done on Balancer, to which extent, and how expensive that might be. Like that's my perspective at least.
Yeah, in terms of like flash loans, like I think currently most utilized is DeFi Saver. So they pretty much liquidate vaults by taking the flash loan from Aave, and then they sell the asset somewhere, usually Uniswap or Kyber or OSIS, depending on how like their algorithms work. I would say Balancer is a good option for that, and also a bit more because you kind of have like this ability to have different compositions and different percentage. So that will be pretty fascinating.
Yeah, I will also be interested to understand if this will break compatibility with any other of the pool. That's maybe something to think about during the experimentation phase. Is that will be any impact within the ecosystem of Balancer itself, or if we break compatibility in any way.
Oh yeah, true.
Yeah, so I got a question. I honestly don't exactly understand what flash funding is from C++, but when we talk about use cases in Flash Loan, our team built this no code app builder, and it's like working pretty neatly. But then again, the use case we built for ARBs, right? Finding ARB opportunities and exploiting it is something which I'm not able to get my hands on. Like, what is the best possible way to enable ARB opportunities, like easily identifying ARB opportunities for the community? Because I think more than the community will gain from the ARBs differences, but the difference between price of exchanges will also reduce with this. So yeah.
Yeah, I think in terms of like the ARBs, like as a use case, the kind of idea is to balance price efficiencies between the trading venues and or the asset values in different, well, basically different trading venues, asset values. So in terms of that, that's kind of the whole point. In terms of like utilization, at some point there is a kind of like a momentum where the opportunities are so arbitrage that basically that the market becomes efficient enough. But I think we're not there yet. But at some point, that will eventually happen. But I see like ARBs just one use case, kind of like in terms of like flash loans. It basically allows, especially if you have to rebalance things without returning a receivable or fulfilling an obligation in between. For example, refinancing is pretty neat thing that you can do with flash loans. But in terms of other use cases, it's kind of like a way to also get like magnitude of capital without actually having it, but just for the one transaction.
Yeah. I think like the entire concept is incredible, right? Like this idea that you can access a huge amount of capital, like, everybody can access a huge amount of capital is already, worth exploring in any of the angles.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's like super exciting. Like, who would have thought, this might happen, like, even 2-3 years ago, even for a very short time. I like the idea of the refinancing stuff. I think that's very interesting. And my understanding is that Alba has been used mostly from this perspective.
Yeah, exactly. Like the refinancing is because like you can actually like the very optimal thing I haven't seen anyone yet build is basically where you could actually make a collateral swap, so you can change your long position on debt, and then you basically refinance, for example, to other protocol and to other stable coin. So you basically make a interest rate swap if you swap to a lower interest rate. And on top of that, you could actually make a currency swap. So basically you swap your debt currency. For example, if you had a MakerDAO CDP, you basically draw DAI, and now you are in other protocol, for example, drawing USDC or something else. And that's kind of like where you could have like 3 different swaps, like the collateral, the currency, the interest rate with one transaction. Or you can even diversify it even further. You can go as long as, let's say, if you have a big debt of like refinancing at 100,000, you can basically split it into different protocols, different amounts, swap the collateral accordingly, like what's your risk appetite and long position, swap the rates, and also swap the kind of like what currencies you're borrowing. I personally love to borrow USDT because like I feel that it has the highest default risk. And when I borrow, I usually, well, not usually actually anymore, but I used to borrow and convert into USD or euros. And what it happens is that if USDT defaults, I basically have to return less USDT value because basically I would repay it in euros or USD. So basically, there's a lot of
too many USD something.
Yeah, too many. So that's like pretty epic stuff. But now I don't do it that much because I don't do many things anymore in fiat economy, and I think I see more people basically who are involved in DeFi teaching kind of whatever you can do in like the old financial system and do just in this new finance.
I'm kind of curious, like if you saw any very, very peculiar, very exciting, like new ways of using flash loan within the Aave hackathon. Like I think you guys run an hackathon fairly recently, or like it just started. Like, do you want to maybe mention that since we have a bunch of developers on the call?
Yeah, I think in terms of like most of the stuff I saw was like no loss, basically hacks. So let's say no loss. There was no loss betting, no loss gambling, and no loss studying, where people learn solidity and based on the studying scores they divide the interest. But in terms of flash loans, there were basically things that were part of kind of like composability. I can't recall any specific, but I remember there was a couple of them. I personally will review some of them and make a tweet about what kind of stuff there was. But I think like most like very first use cases that I have been brainstorming has been already done. So I think like stuff that I haven't seen yet done is something someone proposed, like doing like an some sort of like an amplifier. So let's say you have an order of, let's say, like a market making amplifier. You have an order of like some order that you're willing to buy at some price, and you don't have the inventory. So you take a flash loan and sell that asset and then convert it back and basically return the flash loan. But that was, for me, it was like a bit of like cryptic how it works. But the idea was that you just have a order somewhere in a DEX and you can amplify it. That requires then that you will use something like Uniswap or something like Kyber or a DEX that doesn't, like, you don't need to deposit the funds, and that's like there's one step in between. So that needs to be like actually like interoperable in terms of like composability. But I still think like those use cases that we have now in terms of flash loans, they're pretty obvious by now. And I think like if people just try to think more harder, we could find like very cool things that could be done.
Yeah, I agree.
The latest,
cool.
guys, like what we were pitching now is pretty much like for to the SET protocol to help in terms of like balancing and their liquidators. And liquidators in itself, like liquidating with flash loan makes sense. I mean, that would have saved a lot. I'm not sure like what's why MakerDAO, they're pretty like kind of like against a bit the flash loans, because flash loan liquidating will really help
Indeed.
In terms of like liquidations. And I think like DeFi Saver is a very beautiful example of how you could actually do it very right. And I think they saved roughly like 2 million worth of CDPs on Black Thursday, and that by itself mitigated the 0-bit auctions. So I think I think people should just basically be full on the interoperability. Like that's something that the smart contract were designed, and any obstacle in between, even layer 2 is like very difficult in that sense, because like then we go back to the kind of like old financial system where things
everything is in a silos basically, and he has to work in his own box.
Very cool. Very cool. I appreciate all the insight on that. That's great info as we move forward with experimenting here. And obviously anyone who's watching this on YouTube after the call, feel free to hop into Discord in the development channel and add your thoughts. And guys, if you think of anything that comes up after we get off this call, you can feel free to tack them on to the PR in the Discord channel, and definitely keep these conversations going throughout the week. And I'm sure Mick will be in there talking actively about what he's up to. So cool. Anyone else have any comments on flash loans or any ideas they want to throw out there? Okay, great. Well, let's move on then to the bounty program development. So that's going to be my primary focus over the week. We're starting with a bounty basket of about 100,000 DOE tokens that we're going to start to look at applying to some of these issues that are in ZenHub. So really interested in your thoughts about how much DOE you would want to do some of these issues. You can go ahead and ZenHub and comment on that. I think we're going to be talking about that really actively in the development channel and putting out some proposals for the governance layer to agree on. And the other thing that we have going along those lines is similar to the community calls where we introduced POAP tokens. We're going to have POAP tokens for these development calls. So if everybody who's on this call right now could just go to that PR with your GitHub account and either say hey in the comments or just put you know, some sort of reaction on the post. You can click on the rocket or the eyes or the heart there. And just so we know what your GitHub account is, we'll be noting everybody's GitHub who was involved in the call on the notes after the call. And we'll also be contacting you over Discord to provide you a link to that first POAP token, so you can always know that you were prove that you were on this call. That might be integrated into the bounty program somehow in the future. We're not quite sure exactly how we want to use those yet, but they're kind of like our first experiment into reputation that doesn't have to do with exact commits or anything like that.
Yeah, there is definitely something interesting about that. The idea that people who have been seeing the development from day zero, or like at least following like the evolution, like yeah, I've probably something to share about the next steps.
Yeah. Anyone have any thoughts or any general things that they like about other bounty programs that exist out there in the world or in the space? Anything that you want to kind of interject? Mick, I saw you on mute. You got some ideas?
Yeah, I was waiting. Maybe somebody else wants to say something. But like, how will we price like the bounties? Do we do like we do an estimate of story point like stuff and attach X amount of DOE per point, or do we like an estimate in hours and then do like X amount of dollar value in DOE, or how do we price the bounties?
You know, that's definitely something I've been thinking about. You know, a lot of places will sort of say, here's what we're willing to give you to do this. I know that, you know, Alessio and I have each at various points in the conversation among the core team said that it might be interesting to kind of reward DOE based on the actual effort that it took to get to a solution. But of course, then that's a little trickier because someone who's starting a PR doesn't know exactly how much they're going to get. So yeah, I'm really interested from particularly people on this call who haven't contributed yet and are thinking about contributing. Haytham, I know you contribute on a lot of projects around the ecosystem. Love to hear your thoughts on it. You know, anyone who has any thoughts on like what the best approaches are out there.
I think generally speaking, it would be like a good start to maybe use this week or like the first issue to get at least to reference issue, maybe in t-shirt size or something like that. So try to, you know, not be very precise in hours because that's almost impossible, but basically try to figure it out. You know, this is kind of a S in t-shirt size, like, and then you can have like an M, X, XL, XXL. And then once we have like a couple of different reference points with associated DOE bounties, like we can try to find out or derivate everything in the middle. I think that's a good way to think about it.
Yeah, I think it's kind of tricky, like to set how much each task like deserve as a bounty. So yeah, I think like as a good starting point is just try to estimate like the KPI value of the task. Like, is it important for now or not, and how much like from the core team perspective will take in hours, or and is it like hard, medium, or easy task? at the end, I think it's just an estimation. So nothing should be like really precise for now, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I've did bounties before, and then they put like they estimated like 20 hours, and it was like 70 euros an hour or something like that. And then I did a couple of them, and a couple of them I was slower, a couple of them I was quicker, and it canceled it out pretty well. So like if you do like small ones, then if you're wrong with the estimate, it's not that big of a deal. Whereas if you do like a big one, and we say it's 20 hours, but it's actually 40, then people won't like that. But if you're off by an hour or something, it's not that big of a deal, I think. Yeah. So small bounties.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I'll definitely be talking about this a lot more in the development channel, proposing a couple of these ideas and see if we can get people who I know there's a number of contributors, probably technical people who are in the US who don't have a chance to join this call given the timing of it at the moment.
I think this is
and
also
so I
like
wanna
one of the
include them.
interesting use case for the POAP token, right? Because like eventually if you see someone, you know, who has been participating in the community call and maybe participating in multiple bounties and then, you know, overly underestimated like a single task, you know, like he can just come back and say like, you know, we trust this guy, right? So like if it turns out
Right.
whatever he estimated was completely off, like we are all reasonable people here. Like yeah, we can have an open discussion about it.
Yeah. If for this bounties, do we do like a full governance vote with the entire DAO, or do we do like a budget and have some people like being the curators of the bounties with or something like that, or do we want to like full vote?
Well, we're definitely going to need a governance vote for the issuance of the tokens, but I think that
I think we should.
That you know, in terms of you know, that's definitely something we have to propose to the rest of the community once we as the development community within PieDAO come up with what we think might work for us. We got to make sure that the rest of the community and the governance layer is kind of on board with that. So that's definitely the goal of this week. I'd like to get to a point where we're proposing that to the community by the call next week and sort of talking about what we came up with. So again, anyone who really wants to get one of those POAP tokens, you know, really designed to be people who are going to develop actively and are on this call from a development perspective, and bringing something to the table around project management or something like that. So, you know, we'd like to see you go ahead and note in GitHub. I see only a couple people so far have made a reaction to the GitHub issue. So please go ahead and do that right now if you want to get a POAP token for this week. I think in future weeks we might disperse them on the calls, but with the gas price being where it's at right at the moment, I know that the POAP team is having a hard time getting those out at a reasonable price for the moment. So cool. All right. Any other comments on things around bounty programs that you like, don't like, you'd like to see us do?
Are we doing like bounties only for development, or also thinking about content production, that kind of stuff?
I think for the moment, it's going to be mostly development and documentation. So in terms of content production, you know, there could certainly be some documentation stories that double as content. But for the time being, at least within the scope of this call and the development cycle, what we'll be talking about is really development bounties. I definitely wouldn't rule out the idea that content bounties become a thing eventually, though. But I think that might work different, or, you know, I think there's a lot of different considerations that content creators have that are different than maybe, you know, what developers have with regards to commits and pull requests and things.
Yeah, I agree about that.
Yeah.
All right,
Cool.
sounds good.
All right,
so
guys.
like, do we have any understanding in terms of like how the assignment, like this is going to be self-assigning issues, right?
Yeah, really, I mean, this is voluntary. So, you know, anyone who wants to take on an issue, all the issues are going to be written up in ZenHub. And one of the things that we're going to be trying to do on this call going forward is to start to prune out some of those issues and identify who wants to take what. And so as we get a little bit more organized and get a couple of regular contributors, who are showing up to the call and actively engaging pull requests, then you'll be able to say, hey, I'm thinking about doing this, and kind of talk about some of that on the call. I definitely see this getting a little bit less general, a little bit more technical as we go on. But for this first one, obviously, since we're just getting started, and we haven't put a lot of issues in, we don't have the bounty program finalized yet. It's good to keep it general. So I like the way this one went.
Yeah, sounds good. And I also kind of feel like it's good that you know, the model will emerge by the community itself, like, you know, people self-assigning stuff or
Exactly.
you know, making yeah, I like.
We've as a core team, we've been talking internally and running this thing according to our own whims for a couple of months. I definitely want to get outside of that and start to make this more of a community development effort. We've been moving that way primarily for speed and making sure that we got some products to market, got the whole thing set up. But now I think we're ready to take a more collaborative role on the development cycles. Awesome. Well, anyone else have anything they want to talk about, or any other comments related to development or being part of this, or any questions before we hop off? All right. Well, thank you guys, everybody, for joining. And, you know, again, hop on and let us know what your GitHub is in the pull request for the development call agenda. I'll let everybody kind of do that up until the top of the hour, and then that'll be kind of the cutoff for being included in the notes about that you were here, and ultimately getting those POAP tokens. So, you know, obviously, Stanny, we know that you were here, and we know what your GitHub is and all that stuff. But if you're new to the team and you haven't been around that much, please do go ahead and do that, and make some sort of comment to let us know who you are on GitHub, so that we can see what your work is and note that you were here. You can also go ahead and drop that in the chat right at the moment if you want to.
Yep.
Cool.
All right, guys, thank you very much for joining. Like, I'm gonna hop off right now. If Warrior is the GitHub of Stanny, awesome.
Yep, perfect. All right, guys, thank you for being here, and we'll talk next week.
Thank you all.
Cheers, bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Ciao. See you on Discord.